Ladies and gentlemen, a second experimental snapshot is out with a tweaked preview of the new world generation for the Caves and Cliffs update part 2. My name is Sliced Lime, welcome to an overview of 1.18 experimental snapshot 2. If you've missed what this experimental snapshot thing is about, then you might want to also take a look at my video about the first one before continuing here. In this one, we're going to focus on the changes from experimental snapshot 1. So what has changed? Biome placement is more smooth in this version. That means that there are fewer so-called microbiomes where there's a tiny island of a biome in the middle of another biome. Biomes now also tend to be a bit larger and less fragmented. Underground biomes now interfere less with surface biomes, so you're less likely to see a lush cave or a dripstone cave above ground. They can still leak out of cave entrances sometimes though. The ice spikes and the eroded badlands biomes were completely missing in the first experimental snapshot. Now they generate again. Swamps did generate, but mostly in weird locations. Now they generate in better locations. Beaches have been expanded and are generally wider, but in some places there are no beaches at all, to provide some variation. The heights of some of the peaks have been increased, so the highest peaks now reach up to 220 or even 260 or so, but these are still pretty rare. The chance of finding large areas of flatter terrain has also been somewhat increased in this version. The contents of the biomes has also seen some changes. The new mountain biomes now behave more like traditional mountains, with emeralds and infested blocks spawning in them, and the default set of monsters as well. Meadows now have more animals in them, spawning sheep and rabbits and not only donkeys. They no longer have blue orchids, which are now once again unique to swamps, but sometimes you'll now find a rare tree in a meadow, often with a bee nest inside of it. The old mountains biome has been renamed back to Extreme Hills, and Gravelly Mountain has been renamed to Gravelly Hills. This is so there's less risk of confusion, for instance when trying to find the new mountains using the /locate command. Structures could show up in weird places in the previous experimental snapshot, which has been mitigated in this version, so you shouldn't see as many desert temples in jungles anymore. The chance of sand and gravel being placed in such a way that they immediately fall down on generation has been reduced in this version. In those places you'll now instead find sandstone or stone, which both makes the world look nicer and saves on performance. Let's talk about the cave part of the update. The mega cave entrances are a bit toned down in this version compared to the previous one. They're more likely to be a bit smaller and less likely to go all the way down to deep slate levels. Cheese caves overall are a bit smaller on average. They can still be huge, but finding the huge ones will be a bit more rare. They're also less likely to intersect with the surface. Ore veins are a bit more abundant in this version, coming in both slightly larger and more frequently. This is a response to players rarely finding them when playing in survival mode. There are also some changes that aren't strictly related to world generation in this version. The cloud level has been raised from 128 to 192, which means that clouds can still intersect the highest mountain peaks, but won't intersect terrain as often. In the previous experimental snapshot, monster spawning was changed to only occur in a block light level of 0, absolute darkness. There's an additional change to spawning in this version, specifically to spawners, where zombie, skeleton, spider and cave spider spawners now spawn mobs up to block light level 11. This makes these spawners more difficult to deal with, as you could previously mostly disable a spawner by placing down a single torch, which was the case both before and after the change in the previous snapshot. This change should mean dealing with a spawner room is more of a challenge. There's a map making feature related to this as well. Spawners have a new custom spawn rules tag, which lets you override the spawn rules of the spawned mob. In that tag, you can specify block light limit, which indicates the highest block light the spawners will spawn mobs at. And that's it for this version. And the announcement also contains a note that this version will be the last snapshot, even in experimental form for a while, since most of the team is now off on vacation, including yours truly. As with the previous version, everything in this experimental snapshot is, well, experimental, and subject to change, so keep that in mind. If you need a guide for how to get it, then take a look at my video about the first experimental snapshot, which has a complete guide. It's linked right here. If you play it and you have feedback, then leave that feedback in the Reddit thread or on the Minecraft feedback site. I appreciate any comments you leave here on this video as well, of course, but this isn't where the team will be looking for feedback on how to develop the game further. A final note here, because I know there will be questions. There are, at the time of recording this video, no mods for the experimental snapshot that lets you run shaders. What you see in this video is a combination of techniques to render an experimental world with current version shaders, simply to show off how the new terrain generation will eventually look with shaders. Anyway, that's all for me today. Thank you for watching, and if you want more content like this, then why don't you subscribe to the channel? Or how about trying out some of my more cinematic content from the Legacy SMP server? You can find the links up on screen right here.